Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Sherry Regiani to you this afternoon. She's in the Society for Human Resources Management, and she got her dental hygiene degree in 1974 from Old Dominion University School of Dental Hygiene. She got her bachelor's from Oakland University in 1976, and she's a U.S. Navy veteran, and continues to study and practice management, time management, human resources, and since the 1980s, she has coached dentists and other healthcare professionals throughout the U.S. So thank you, Sherry. Welcome.
Thank you. Yay. I do not practice clinical dentistry anymore. I have been a front desk receptionist. I've been an office manager. And hygiene is something that I loved very much until I started taking business classes. And then I started getting really interested in business classes, especially because it came from a totally different atmosphere that I knew. When you are a dentist, and back in the day, you could open up an office, you could have an assistant, you could have a hygienist, you could have a front desk office manager, and that was it. But the real world is changing. The last 5 years, the next 5 years especially so, and we have, come on in, we have issues of compliance. And so my job here today is to show you that compliance is not a difficult thing, but it's a mandatory thing. And HIPAA has changed the way that an office functions, and a dentist office has to function no differently than any other business. So first, why HIPAA? Oh, wait a second, I forgot to read this. It's my AGD disclaimer. I do not have any financial interest of a product in my talk or with any of the companies offering, or with any company offering grant monies for this continuing dental and medical education program. Disclaimer done. All right. We have to protect our patients' protected health information. Anytime you hear PHI, the word is protected, but the meaning is personal. It protects the security and reputation of your office, as well as it is the law. And dentists are required to undergo HIPAA training. It does not matter if it is a dentist or a dental staff member. Somebody in the office needs to be declared the HIPAA compliance officer, new title, and then train the rest of the staff. If you picked up the newspaper in the last day or two, you happen to go online, you may have seen this little tiny story about Home Depot. Amazing that a business of that size has finally taken security seriously now that they're going to be fined and they had a major breach. Security refers to electronics only, but if you do not have electronic records, it still applies to you. Because privacy, if you think privacy and paper, that's unsecured PHI. Paper is still something that we have to take care of, as well as our conversations that we have and anything electronic. So it's two ends of that spectrum. In the handout is a whole list of definitions. We live in a society that seems to love acronyms and initials. Don't worry about them right now, except the covered entity. Yeah, there it is. CE. CE, not as in continuing education, but anytime you see CE and anything to do with HIPAA, it means covered entity. That means you as a provider. BA is also business associate, and we'll talk about business associate agreements. But that's a list that you need to be familiar with. So where did HIPAA begin? 1996, Privacy Act. We're going to do two things. We're going to make healthcare delivery more efficient and increase the number of Americans with healthcare. Yay, great idea. Nobody paid attention. Along came high tech in 2009. Requirements, stipulations, rules that would be, well, putting the teeth into the law. Thank you. Somebody laughed. Okay. Thank you. High tech was called the interim final regulation. This is the final rule, Omnibus. Now, one cool thing the government does whenever they come up with a rule like this on HIPAA, they give you at least 6 months to comply with it. It was passed in January of 2013. Its deadline was September of 2013. 4 big changes that came with Omnibus. Business associates were directly liable. So in other words, if you are processing insurance through an insurance provider, let's say you go to a port on Delta Dental, or you use a super bill and another company provides service for you, they are now liable for their error, not you, if they're the ones that caused the error. You also cannot sell or disclose information without specific instructions to your patients that you're doing so, and they're specifically signing off. They can get electronic copies. Now, obviously, you can't provide electronic copies of models, but patients are now allowed to have electronic copies, and we'll talk about encrypted email of how you turn that over to them. Number D requires modification and redistribution of the Notice of Privacy Practices. In 2009, you were to design a Notice of Privacy Practices, how you use the information, what you do with it. If you were like most offices, you may have had a 7 or 8 or 9 page document. Now it's down to 1 or 2 pages. And also research and immunizations, and adopted the high-tech rules, which was an increase in tiered penalties if you don't comply, breach notification for unsecured, which is paper documentation, and genetics information, which we won't get into. There's the Federal Registry. It's long. If you want to just amaze your friends, you can always pick that up. You may have gotten one of these out of your charge card statement lately. This happens to be Citibank, and it's not because they felt like being nice people. Anybody who transmits anything electronically has had to redo their Notice of Privacy Practices. As a provider, this is what you must do. There's a copy of a template in the handouts. If you don't have it, you can go online and get it from this Academy's website. But you have to post it conspicuously. Patients have to be aware of it. You must give it to new patients. You have to get an attempt to make them to sign it. Sometimes you get an elderly person who says, I'm not going to sign this. That's okay. This is their Notice of Privacy Practices. If they have been going to healthcare providers, they're accustomed to sign it. If they go, I don't want to, all you need to do is acknowledge Mrs. Smith refused to sign your name, Susie Jones, and the date. You made the fair effort attempt. And if you have a website, it's got to be posted, or it's got to be within easy access. So a simple link will do. And this is what we do. What we don't do. And number 5 is especially important, a right to limit disclosure. I can't make this little guy. There we go. A right to limit disclosure. If a patient does not want their insurance company to know something, now they have the right to ask you not to disclose it. This is a big deal. Suppose you have a smoking cessation program. Suppose a patient has registered with their insurance company that they don't smoke, but they've been backsliding and they've been smoking, and they don't want anybody to know because their health care rates will go up, and when their insurance rates go up, well, that's not good. So they say, I want to stop smoking, I want to do a smoking cessation program in your office, and I don't want you to tell anybody I'm going to pay today in cash. You don't submit anything to the insurance. They keep their status as a non-smoker. Another case where this could happen. Dentally, insurance companies limit when you can do certain crowns, bridges, implants, and somebody says, wow, I am not eligible now to have a bridge redone. So what will that take? Well, that'll take another 1.5 years before you're eligible again. But if you want to pay out of pocket, we can put a partial in there, we can put a unilateral partial in there, and when your time has lapsed, maybe it's a 5-year waiting period, now we can do the bridge and now, or an implant, and now your insurance will pick up their portion. They just have to let you know ahead of time, and in the Notice of Privacy Practices, you must tell them that they have that ability. If they don't tell you, and it goes to the regular insurance, and they find out about this later, well, the onus is on them. And again, the provision for copying electronic records and any non-identifying personal information is okay. Patient writes you a letter. Hey, I had a great time. Susie the hygienist was wonderful. So happy to be a new patient in your practice. Yes, you can quote that from a patient. If they say it's okay, hey, you can say it came from me, then you can say it came from Mrs. Jane Smith. All right, so actually what is protected health information? Anything that you create in your records, anything that comes through an insurance plan, anything that comes through with any personal identifying information. Their date of birth, their member ID, social security number, driver's license, diagnostic or prescriptive information. And that brings us to real-life practicality. Sign-in sheets. You print your name. Everybody knows the first column. Tell me something you put in column number 2. Anybody know what you have in your check-in? Time you arrived. That's okay. Pardon? New patient, that's okay. Anybody ever ask reason for visit? Cannot put reason for visit. You can say, please let us know if there have been changes. Yep. And that is perfectly fine. If you didn't hear her answer, if taking children to a doctor, one of the columns would say, if your address has changed, your insurance has changed, check here. Notice it doesn't say, write down your new address or write down what new insurance you have. So as long as you are asking a generic question, that's just fine. Confirming appointments is new. Oh my goodness, we confirm things so easily. Pew Report, this is actually 2012, but for the first time, half of all adults age 65 or older are online. Fastest growing group to use smartphones, anybody 65 and older. You can confirm by text message, reminder, your appointment 2:30 tomorrow at Dr. Regiani's. You may not say, reminder for your periodontal maintenance tomorrow at 2:30 at Dr. Regiani's. Text message is open to anyone. If your phone's sitting out here and it beeps up, but I just happen to look at it, and she's got an appointment somewhere tomorrow, that's none of my business. But if it's there, it is. So just appointment, you can do that. If you use a major software vendor, if you're on Dentrex or you're on EagleSoft, it's not going to allow you to put in purpose. If you're on one of the others, make sure that you don't put purpose of visit. And if you are emailing, they have given you permission. They have given you their email address. That's okay to say periodontal maintenance. That's okay to say reminder to take your pre-medication, because email requires a password and a login. So not just anybody can see it. Questions? What do you think? Can a parent take a photo of their child first visit to the dentist? Show of hands, yes? Show of hands, no? Show of hands, I really have no idea. Okay. A parent taking a photo of their own child is permissible. They're giving you permission to take their photo by virtue of the fact they're taking the photo. However, if they are sitting in a reception room with other people, if you have open bay operatories where you can see other patients, you have a breach of security if somebody else is in the photo. So if mommy wants to take a picture of Junior in the chair with the hygienist, just fine. Not where other people are concerned. So you need to have something written if they want to take a picture of someone else. Can I get the whole staff together? You might want to write it up. Or the safest thing is you can take a picture of Junior with the hygienist in the dental chair, period. If you ever want to get some really good case studies, go to HIPAA blog. You can just Google search that HIPAA blog. You can read the most interesting and stupid things that people get cited for. There was a case, the reason I bring this up, is there was a case of a doctor's office, and it's still in process now. Mom took a picture, and there was someone else in the background. And it was posted to social media. And they didn't want to know. And welcome to 2014. Rule number 2, the increased tier in civil money penalty. It's penalty avoidance, and it's not piggy banks I'm talking about here. This is from the HIPAA site, and there's no other way to do this except to put the whole thing up here. Let's start with the top left. An individual did not know, and by exercising reasonable diligence would not know, he or she violated HIPAA. Your staff takes a picture of Junior in the chair with the dental hygienist, doesn't realize there's another patient in the room, puts it on the website, let's just say puts it on Facebook, something on social media, and somebody else sees it. Didn't know, totally innocent, was just taking a picture of Junior. Well, let's see. That starts with a $100 violation. Then you see the annual max of $25,000 for repeat violations, and the maximum here is imposed by your own state attorney general. So it's federal law and state law. If you're in Texas, you have different regulations than I do in Michigan. If you're in California, it's a whole nother world. The maximum penalty is $50,000 per violation with an annual of $1.5 million. And it goes down. On the left side, due to reasonable cause but not willful neglect. due to willful neglect but corrected, willful neglect and not corrected. Let me give you some instances, these two bottom categories. I have a thumb drive. I put it down. I leave the room. Oh, by the way, those were some of my patient x-rays I was going to take home today to write a treatment plan. I stopped at Starbucks. I got groceries. I had to go to the cleaners. I have no idea where I left that. Oh, and by the way, it's not encrypted. Anybody pops it in. It's in a Word document. Anybody can read it. Now, this is probably not reasonable cause. I knew I was taking home an unencrypted thumb drive. So would it fall into willful neglect? $10,000 per violation. Let's say I had 9 patient records on there. Yeah, you can see the money adding up. That's why you're here. That's why you're going to learn about it, because this is not going to happen to you. Due to willful neglect and not corrected, I really don't give two beans. I take my records home on my thumb drive, and I'm going to continue to do so. And they will find you. So, who's a business associate? These are the people who are interim to your care. If your PHI is disclosed to another healthcare provider for treatment purposes, you're sending a patient to a specialist. What do you think? You need an agreement, or they're okay? They're okay. We're sharing data with another healthcare provider. This is what we're supposed to be doing, electronically preferred. Insurance plan, also okay. Part of an official investigation, also okay. Now, because this is the IAOMT, PHI disclosed preparatory to research purposes. This one you're going to have to get information from the entity that you're working with. If you are part of a research study and you say, I have 14 females and I have 25 males of these ages and this is what I found, and your research entity says, I need to know you just didn't make this stuff up. So you may need to have some data backing it. Then you're going to have your patient sign a notice of consent that says you're part of a research study, which you probably should have done to begin with. And that business associate, that research entity, would be signing a contract with you that I'm not going to release that information. So your common business associates are contracted billers, record destruction or copying service, a computer consultant, and then sometimes maybe a pharmacy service. And that would be within your own state. So the contract is what protects the information that you have. Let's just suppose it's a major insurance carrier and they lose data. They're the Home Depot of insurance companies. You are protected if they lost the data. You have a signed contract from them, usually on their website, and what you're interested in most, how the business associate would respond to a breach, what if it involves any of their subcontractors, or an OCR, Office of Civil Rights investigation. Part of what's happening right now with Home Depot is they're struggling to find out where, what happened when. If you have a breach, you normally, federally, have 6 months to get this remedied, to find out what it is, who it was, and get it taken care of. Unfortunately, if you're from California, you have something like 6 days. So if it's your business associate that had the problem, and they chew up 2 or 3 of your days, it's a different story. So again, you can look up California HIPAA and get some information. I can look up Michigan HIPAA and get some information. You have to look at the federal law, you have to look at your state's law, and you have to apply to the most stringent, kind of like OSHA. Oh, okay, breach notification. This is the simplest part. We are now going to take you through how you set up your own HIPAA, and we're going to call HIPAA new patient. Every new patient needs a file. So you literally make a paper file, and you're going to do a self-assessment. Any secured and unsecured. Remember, unsecured is paper. So walk through your facility. Walk in with fresh eyes. What is locked every night? What is unlocked? How could somebody get in? Do you leave the windows open at night if it's a cool evening, you just want to get a breeze in, air out the place? Could somebody break in that way? Do you lock your files? What do you do with your photos on social media? Do they include patients in the background? If it's staff, it's okay. And even if it's staff, you should have something with your employees that they allow you to take their photos for publicity or for media marketing. Are your workstations password protected and changed? Yeah, if you have 7 computer workstations and they all say admin and their password is all admin, who do you know gave what information to who? Or who do you know that was on Facebook or maybe checking their email account during lunch? You don't. Cell phones, laptops, and USBs, protected. If I leave my phone here and I walk away and I forget it and I'm gone and tonight I go, oh my gosh, I left it in the conference room. You can't get in because first you have to have my thumbprint, which you probably won't have, or my 4-digit identifier. Now, the 4 digits can be hacked. This is true. But it's not easy. After 3 attempts, this phone will lock. And unless you have my thumbprint, nothing's going to happen. Oh, and by 10 attempts, it wipes itself clean. But if I can't find it within the few minutes of which I found it, of which I knew it was lost, I can go to any other computer, not even my own, and I can wipe the data clean. If you have an Android or you have an Apple device, that is available to you. And if you don't know how to do it, go back where you bought it. The Apple Store will be happy to help you. I'm sure an Android store will be happy to help you too. So simple to set up. We're going to talk about email and fax disclaimers. And boy, I hope everybody in here has at least one crosscut shredder. Not the old-fashioned strip shredder, but the real crosscuts. Okay, so how could it happen to me? Something's lost. Or lately we've heard a lot about flooding, natural disaster. What would you recover? How would you recover it? This is as simple as writing it down. This is your risk assessment on a piece of paper. You can do it in a beautiful Excel spreadsheet. What you need to do is actually just have a document. This is what we would do. This is how we would recover our data. Do you use cloud storage? Do you use media? If you use media, if you use a tape drive, if you use the old-fashioned cassettes, where are they stored? Who has access? How would your data be restored? And then what if you were hacked? Now, hacking is actually less likely, but it can happen. Password breach, again, the reason why you don't have admin. And unsecured. This is the hardest one. Anybody ever lose a chart in your office? I mean, am I the only office that happens to? Fax machines are totally unsecured and conversational. So most of what happens is due to theft or unauthorized access, which is very much like theft. You can see hacking is a tiny, tiny percentage. Improper disposal, loss is just as bad. Breach examples. This is Dr. Smith. She's standing there at the bottom. This is her IT tech, Bob. Bob says, okay, Dr. Smith, you are all set. We've got everything done for you. By the way, I noticed you're a periodontist. What is a periodontist? And she starts telling him all about the connections between dental health and regular health. And she says, in fact, look at this. Bacteria commonly present in gum disease increases risk of heart attack to 200 to 300%. He says, wow, I think my coworker Jim comes to you. Could he have heart disease? And she says, you know, I see a lot of people in my practice. And she diverts the conversation back to thank you for coming today and getting me straightened out. Bob, on the other hand, calls Susan. Susan is his coworker. Susan's trying to get a promotion. So's Jim, the unknown person here. Hey, Susan, you know what? I think Bob's got to do some stress reduction. I think he's got some heart problems because I was just at the periodontist. I know he goes to see Dr. Smith. What do you think? Look up his absence excuse. Was he at Dr. Smith's office? Because he might have heart disease. So Bob's out of the picture. Susan calls her friend, who works in HR. Hey, can you just look up and see? Jim was out last week, wasn't he? So what was he out for? Oh, that's right. It was a doctor's appointment. It was Dr. Smith. Cool. Oh, and by the way, two things. First, if you notice the lady on the right, she lost her iPhone. She's using a big old-fashioned phone, hoping she can find this one again. And there's the plumber who overheard some of this. And by the way, there was a little leak that affected Dr. Smith's office. And when he walked in there, this is what Dr. Smith's office looked like. So we have patient data up on a laptop. We have an appointment book that may or may not have information. We have passwords post-it noted to the side. Keys, whole kit and caboodle. This is what we refer to as unsecured PHI. So what you're going to do in your little HIPAA folder, you might write down where you put the passwords. You might write that down in a way that you would remember. In the same place where I store my mother's photo. Now the funny thing is that is actually something that I remember for me. Because I do have a place where in my house I store a photo of my mother on her 90th birthday. And that is where I keep my passwords. And you would not know where that photo happened to be, so you wouldn't know where I stored them. But I don't keep them on a file called password. Offices sometimes tend to do that. People tend to do that. And if you change your passwords judiciously, as you should, you need to know where you store them. And it should be on paper, but certainly not sitting out on your laptop. So, what do? It's really simple. Mobile devices account for the easiest way to lose data. On my phone, you will find no link to Dentrix. On my Apple iPad, you'll find Words with Friends. Nothing to do with my business. Before you download anything, run a virus scan. It will ask you, do you want to run a virus scan? Yes. Simple. Oh, and make sure you know what your virus software is. Sometimes you're downloading an update. Let's just say it's a Microsoft update. Maybe they want to give you a free virus protection. But you already have, let's just say they want to give you McAfee, and you have AVG. If you have two different virus protection programs, one may cancel the other one out. So talk to your tech support, see who you use if you're not familiar, and when you download a critical update, make sure you're downloading that update only, not all the other stuff that comes with it. I like this. Google, one of the nation's largest tech companies, had to remove 58 applications after it was discovered they contained rootkit malware. That's like spyware. The apps had been installed on more than 260,000 devices. That's from 2011, 3 years ago. Now I'd say probably put a 0 after that. That's how quickly it happens. Change your password regularly. Put this down in your risk assessment. We change our passwords every 3 months. When you get back to your office, change your passwords, write it on your calendar, and then go out 3 months, write down in December, what's today, the 12th, change passwords. March 12th, change passwords. June 12th, change passwords. Just so that you get in a regular habit of changing your passwords. And that's everybody, not just you, everybody who has patient data. Program locks after 3 failed attempts, and then erase data. And don't save them on your mobile devices or anything like that. When you are writing anything, if you're writing a patient letter and it's got personal information, make sure you use a screensaver. If you walk away, if you have a consultation room that's open and a beautiful big monitor and you've got patient data up and your patients are walked right through, your new patients are toured your office, you don't want to see somebody's history up there. So you either turn off your monitor or you have an automatic screensaver that after 10 seconds just goes into screensaver mode, just keeps it secure. You wouldn't want your information out there. You don't want your patients. Gettings Law, you might want to write this one down. They've got some really good information. And let's see, as of March 2013, there were more than 97,000 mobile health applications. I mentioned Dentrix, and I mentioned Delta, and I mentioned EagleSoft. There's Blue Cross, and I've just named 4, and those are 4 of the biggies. There's a lot more than that, so please be careful. Typical passwords that must be changed. A lot of people use their name. They use nothing. They may use Patterson or Shine for the name of a product vendor. Access admin. Change them to something that you know. And by the way, when you have your employees putting in a workstation, somebody in that office should have the master account to that. So when the employees change, and then Susie decides that she's going to move 2 states away, and, oh, by the way, nobody can get into that workstation, we need tech support to come out. Somebody needs to know the master password. Yeah, write it down. IT media safety. Store your data on NIST certified hard drives. NIST, National Information Standards. you can buy a tape drive that's remanufactured. You don't want to store your patient data on a remanufactured drive. You want a brand new drive. If you have any of the old-fashioned magnetic cartridges, to degauss means to demagnetize. And you can stop at any Staples or Office Depot and they'll tell you how to do it. But that's a simple thing to do. Don't just store them in a shoebox or in a file box, because that is your patient data. And there is a unit called a destroyer. Frankly, I find a sledgehammer works really well. If you have an old drive, you can literally smash it. You'll find little teeny discs in there if you try and take it apart, because I did try and take one apart one time. When they talk about data drives, think of like a CD stacked up. But if you can smash them, that's just as good. There are companies that will do this for you, too. Okay, email safety. Auto disclaimer, that's your first line of defense, but obviously a minor one, and encrypted data. If you send x-rays electronically, which I hope you all do, or your patients are emailing you their health history, it needs to be encrypted so nobody gets it by accident. Anybody ever type in the wrong address? You're sending something to a friend and inadvertently you include somebody else? This is why you want encrypted data. Auto disclaimers. There's a copy of this in the handout. If you have received this email in error, please notify us by telephone immediately, return the email to the sender, and delete the email from your system, including your trash. This is actually my office disclaimer. If you ever get something from the wrong office, they meant to send it to the periodontist. They sent it to the endodontist. You pick up the phone and you tell Dr. Smith's office, hey, we got your email, should have been so-and-so's instead. This is about patient Jim Smith. Okay, no problem. This is what we call an incident. You just write down a little piece of paper in your file, received information inadvertently, no PHI disclosed, because you didn't open the file. You just read the email, you didn't get any patient data, nothing disclosed, talk to Dr. Smith's office, all good. And you delete this, and you also delete it from your trash. Nobody gets the data. There is no breach of security. Nobody saw it. Here we go. Encrypted email. You may see these PGP, Pretty Good Privacy, or MIME. Those are the acronyms, two of the standard companies. You also want sender-only software. Next slide, I'll have some different sites that you can go to. If you get something back that's encrypted, or you're sending a health history to a patient that's encrypted, you don't want them to have to download something. If you get an Adobe attachment, you get a PDF file, most of the time it's going to say, if you don't have Adobe, get this free download. The easiest thing in the world is to make it simple so it interfaces with whatever you're using. So if you do not have an encrypted service, let's go back here. If you don't have an encrypted service, you want to make sure you get one that's simple, that works with Android and iPhones, and that they have good documentation and easy company to access. We'll get back to some of that in a minute. PHI, faxing. Faxes are one of the most dangerous and soon-to-be disappearing items in an office. Several reasons. Faxes come in, and nobody really looks at it. I've been in offices where a fax machine is in the middle of a hallway. I have an elderly uncle, I have my mother, so I've been doing the rounds on medical offices. And sometimes there's a little stack of them. Sometimes they roll up and they fall on the floor. And sometimes I bet you somebody in security sees them. And you shouldn't be there. Also, a fax machine has its own memory. If you ever ran out of paper and you want to reprint from memory, it's there. Don't ever dispose of a fax machine without pulling out its memory. And if you don't know how, Staples, Office Max, I'll show you how. Pretty simple. But it's unsecured, and the best way is to scan it and email it securely. Oh, and by the way, make sure your fax machine is not out in the hallway. Make sure it's only where staff that need that data can get the data. So in your record, you're going to keep 6 years worth of everything, which means that first notice of privacy practices back in 2009, that first copy of the letter that patient signed that, yes, I've received a notice of privacy practices, a copy of that, because the original one that the patient signs goes into their file. And any breach notifications. CEs, covered entities, not continuing ed, must designate a compliance officer. So docs could be your staff members. You can go, hey, it's me, I've been trained. Okay, I can do this. Basic HIPAA training is required. You're all going through basic HIPAA training right now. And you must ensure annual training for your entire workforce and maintain sign-in logs for 6 years. A sign-in log should have typed out every employee's name of the practice, including the doctor's, any designation after that. Sherry Regiani, RDH/HR. And then I sign next to my name and I date 9/12/2014. That's a log. If somebody wasn't there for the training, it's real evident they weren't, you keep that original, and then you do another sheet for them, and you just line out everybody else, and you go, okay, Sue, you weren't there, let's sit down, let's go through this. And then Sue signs off, and maybe it's 9:15. But that way, everybody is covered. Yeah, can you still mail patients' records? Sure you can. Just remember, paper is the least secure, thank you, and the most easy to lose, because we all know the post office can lose information. I love this. Somehow your medical records got faxed to a complete stranger. He has no idea what's wrong with you either. Yeah. So, you have done your risk analysis on your facility. Now, you have to do a risk analysis on something that was lost. Was the data seen or used? In the example I used earlier, I got information that was intended for the endodontist office, instead went to the periodontist. Didn't open it, so there's really no breach of data. Who got the information? Another office. If I'm sending it out and inadvertently I send it to one of my best friends, oh, that's a little more complicated. What kind of information? Did it have personal protected health information or not? And then how did you fix it? Did you pick up the phone right away? I called. It's okay. We're deleting it, and I'm deleting it from my trash. That's all you need to do. Breach notification requires that HIPAA-covered entities provide notification following a breach of more than 500 individuals. Bet my bottom dollar you each have more than 500 patients in your practice. Replace the name Home Depot in your mind with your own office. How ridiculous that Home Depot is finally taking security seriously now that they've had this major breach. If you have a break-in, if you have data loss, if somebody's laptop that they took home to do treatment plans is lost because it was in the trunk of the car or it was in the front seat of the car and they just ran into Starbucks and then the data was stolen, the laptop was stolen and it wasn't encrypted, you have to notify the authorities. The authorities starts with your police or sheriff's department, who will say, how many patients? 2,700. Okie dokie. Now you have breach notification. You don't want to be Home Depot. This is brand new, folks. This is why you're going to make your new little file folder for your patient called HIPAA, because OCR is going to issue a mandatory pre-screen survey, 800 offices, and by the way, they're using the NPI number. They're just random polls. They're going to send out a letter saying, please complete the following. They're going to ask you questions like what I just went through on risk assessment. And they're going to select 350 entities. 232 are going to be healthcare providers, including dentists. The audits begin next month. You can get this slide and all the information at that website, and it's, if you download it from the Academy's website, you'll have it. So, don't stick your head in the sand, and we're going to get to PCI in just a moment. Start a file, keep it for 6 years, keep it running for 6 years, train your staff, have them sign a log every time. The log goes in the HIPAA file folder, just like everything you do with the patient goes in a patient folder. Follow up annually or as required by law. Remember, if your state is stronger than federal HIPAA, follow that. This is PCI. This is the easiest piece of the puzzle that you've ever seen. PCI is a payment card industry. Instead of a federal mandate, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, and JBC got together and said, we can do our own compliance. It's really simple. So if you ever take payment on a charge card or a debit card, PCI compliance applies to you. which means your data must be secure. Back in the day, a patient gave you a charge card, you ran it back and forth. If your machine broke, you might write it down by hand. Patient calls you on the phone, do you mind putting $100 on my Visa? You write it down by hand. What you do with that data is just as important as HIPAA. So, if I can get this one to pull up, Dave's going to help me out here. I have a little video from TrustWave. Okay. Okay. Little technical moment, but I will explain a little bit about TrustWave. Most all charge card companies go to a clearinghouse. Telephone is one of the major ones.
Simple and easy. That's why I picked the people I picked to work with, and that's why I picked TrustWave.
Welcome. If your business accepts credit cards, you need to secure this credit card data to be PCI compliant and safeguard your customers. You understand physical security, locking the doors at night, protecting merchandise, and securing cash registers. Cardholder data that you collect from customers for credit card purchases requires the same diligence. Criminals steal this data from small businesses every day.
I never thought credit card data theft could happen to a small business like ours.
Small merchants account for over 90% of all data breaches, especially businesses in food and beverage, retail, and hospitality. TrustKeeper's PCI process helps you assess the security of your business and identifies areas of your network that are vulnerable to attack, and provides you security solutions to fix them.
One of the things I love about TrustKeeper PCI Manager is that it's very easy to use. It's simple, quick, and easy, so that's what I really love about it.
To get started, have your merchant ID ready and simply click Get Started. You will be guided to set up your new PCI Manager account securely. Then, select the PCI Wizard to take you through the right questionnaire for your business type.
It was a simple checklist that we went through, identified the places where we were not in compliance, and the adjustments to our policies and procedures.
PCI Manager simplifies the process and tracks your progress with the to-do list. It breaks the process into understandable pieces that you can complete in one sitting or over time.
When I teach students self-defense, I'm teaching them how to reduce their vulnerabilities so that they are not susceptible to attack. As a business owner, I want to provide that same security to my clients in regards to their credit card information.
Help and education are always available within the PCI Manager. If you need immediate assistance, please call or email our 24/7 support team.
Partnering with TrustWave is such a perfect fit for us.
TrustKeeper PCI Manager made it very easy for us to become compliant.
With TrustKeeper PCI Manager, I've got it covered. I know that I'm doing my best to keep my clients safe.
Protect your business today. Get started now.
In the time it took to do this video, that's how quickly you'll be compliant with PCI. It's not just a compliance issue, it's knowing that your patient's data is secure, and anytime you go shopping, you want to know that your charge cards are secure. You also want your patients also want to know that you are secure. One thing I want to go back to is on your handout, there should be a page, I'm just going to double check. There should be a page that lists several, 3 or 4 different websites that are encrypted. When we send out patient data, if I'm sending x-rays to another office, if I'm receiving patient health information, we send it encrypted. It's a double system. We send out a link, they register as the receiver, then they can open the link. They can send it back to us the same way. It's a double link system. It keeps your records compliant more than just one login. So there are several different companies. They all are about the same price point. Take a look at them, see what's easier for you. A couple other ways that you can do this. If you happen to have an HP printer, HP technology, if you ever get those little pop-ups with HP, they'll talk about different ways that you can keep your website secure, that you can keep your information secure, your patient information. This is TrustWave's information, and so much is available download. Just Google search it, you'll find it. If you ever have a fraud alert, by the way, there's a way to find that too. We're living in the technology age. It opens up vulnerabilities, but it opens up possibilities. And then I do not partner with Stericycle, but I'm a Stericycle customer. If you are too, I have some of these out on the table. You can go through their checklist, and if you'd like somebody to come into your office and do it, they are one of the companies that do it. If you are not a Stericycle customer, or if you want to just go online and find somebody else who's HIPAA compliant, you can do that as well. Do the risk assessment, keep the file. It's not that difficult. It will keep you in compliance. Any questions? Thank you for your time.